Welcome! What's up to Attention Plan episode 4 with me, FG, and
Me, Tim. How we doing?
I'm doing great. And I see somebody has alerts in their camera feed.
I'm going to turn those off. Naughty Tim. Turn the alerts off.
Naughty, naughty.
You know, this time around, it's so much easier when we don't have the stream category switch. And lo and behold, there are things.
There are still tech things that will happen, but you know what? It's season 1. We're still learning. We're new to this whole streaming thing, you know.
I know, right?
Yeah, we've not done this for years or anything like that. No, it's fine. It's fine. And thank you all so much for being here. Episode 4, and yeah, slight changes you might be noticing, and that is mostly no music, because we've listened to your feedback and we changed that. And then I also noticed one thing that I need to fix, which I literally actually I can fix it, because this is a different setup to the other setup that we used to use. And
goodbye 3.
Right now, no, the thing is, right now we don't have chat on screen.
Chat, yes.
Yes, and that is because this is a different feed, so it doesn't have the same what's the word, setup.
Gubbins.
Yeah, gubbins is a good word. I like that one too. But anyhow, while I do this, why are we talking about exercise? Why are we doing this?
Yeah, it's an important subject. So there are 2 main angles that come to mind for me. One is that exercise is really good for managing symptoms of ADHD. And the other thing that's good to talk about is, how do you get to the point of doing it? Because people with ADHD, we all have our own...
Oh, you just went completely silent.
The things we can talk about today are why exercise is so good for you and how you can get to the point where you have started to add that in and do it. So
yeah,
all of those things can be really good.
Intro was just cut off because of a Discord blurb.
A Discord blurb?
Yeah, it went like robot noise, bloop, and then it broke. And also there are more alerts happening on your end.
The alerts are hidden. They're hidden now.
Okay.
Is my voice okay now?
You're okay, yeah, but you cut out like when it happened. Yeah. I think Rizzy did indeed break, Tim.
Hold on.
When that happened, yes. That was very magical. Okay. Yeah, you got cut out. Like, it's like as if your Discord turned off. Very strange. Ah, there we go. Oh, but that's very small. But at least we have chat now. Okay, cool. We got this.
We got it.
Yeah, it's
so yeah,
you know, season 1, we're new to this, we're learning. Exactly, but that's why we're here for. We're talking about exercise, why it's so important, and why it helps.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's there's so much that's really, well, mandatory is a sort of a strong word, but it's just so helpful when it can be a good part of your routine. It helps with managing the symptoms of ADHD. It helps with so much more than that, but getting to the point of doing it is a difficult thing. And I think it's one of those things that can either be of a real benefit to your life, or it can end up being something that makes you feel guilty, that gets you frustrated, and can be sort of a contributing thing to all of those frustrations that we all commonly have with ADHD.
Yeah, it is. It's with so many things when it comes to ADHD, it's incredibly easy to want too much too quickly, and like it's really hard to get a habit going without overdoing it, immediately getting frustrated and jumping off, or doing so much that you hurt yourself because you're suddenly impulsive and you're like, you're going to start this new gym habit and then you're going to buy all the things for it. And then
on Discord right now. I've tried to change region over to something like Radem. It was on automatic. Might be a Discord regional connection thing.
Oh, I cut off for you. Interesting. Okay, yeah, maybe Discord was having a blurb because we're using
might be a
Discord
server
stuff.
thing.
Yeah, yeah. But exactly, that's the thing. It's very easy to overdo it. It's very easy to also buy too much stuff because you're excited for this new hobby, and then you're going to do it, and you're going to do it regularly, and you're going to work it into your daily life, and then turns out you're not. So it's really
Sit there.
it's difficult, and it's one of those things again where you have to form a habit, which is so incredibly difficult. And we're here to share our journeys with it. For me, it's been incredibly helpful to do it, because I started working out as a way to try and help manage my ADHD. And because I was struggling, I had just gotten my diagnosis. I was still not really reeling from it, but like trying to like learn and figure out how to manage all of these new things and whatnot. And I was reading a lot of stuff, and it just said, yeah, just a little bit of exercise can really help, and it can really help with sleeping, because I was struggling to sleep properly, and like I was having those issues of falling asleep, which we all can relate to, I think. And then especially like with ADHD, with your racing thoughts.
Cutouts on Discord, so I'm not sure whether I was cutting into you mid-sentence or you'd paused or not.
No, I couldn't hear him. Oh, you know what happened? You know what probably happened? There was a Discord update, wasn't there? So they probably changed voice and video settings again or something like that. Because
do bear with us, folks. Yeah, we're cutting out and hearing each other on and off, so we might be tripping over what you're hearing in the conversation together.
Yeah. Hopefully it won't be too bad. But yeah. It's check your Discord settings. Because they enabled all of the things that you don't want on.
Oh, really? Under what tab?
Voice and video, like echo, like not necessarily echo cancellation, but like automatic gain control and stuff like that. They all turned that back on my end, which is not what we want. So yeah, thank you so much for pairing with us. Appreciate it. Tech. But the thing is with exercise, we tend to try to overdo it, and with as with everything, because we're going to start this whole new habit. But what is more important than going like big and then like falling off is actually making it a habit. And it's much more beneficial to start doing 10 minutes a day every day than doing 2 hours one day and then not doing anything for the next 10 days because you're too sore to move. So in that regard, it's the way to get that started is the difficult bit, and to not overdo it. But my recommendation is, if you start wanting to start a workout routine as somebody with ADHD, focus on the consistency rather than the crazy duration, or going for crazy PRs right off the bat and stuff like that.
Where would you say that the sort of impulse to do everything all at once comes from? Because that's a really big hinge of it, right? Like the desire to do loads at once. I kind of wonder off top if it's like if you do everything at once, you'll be different from the times you didn't follow through on stuff. But I think it's also a dopamine thing, right? Like a big
100%.
thing is all exciting and it feels good. It makes your brain activate in the way that a tiny little thing doesn't, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like, it's the thing where it's like the thing with all of the big hobbies, projects that we tend to take up. We get excited by the idea, And by the planning, and we get the dopamine from planning all the things that we're going to do and how often, like you make a schedule and you're going to walk that day and that day you're going to do a run and then you're going to do that and this and that. And then the problem is we get all of our dopamine from that. And then you fall off because you never really started. And we tend to do that. We tend to do that a lot. It's hard to hold yourself back from doing that. And it's a work in progress. I tend to also want to like buy all the things for it and then immediately do it. But it's, as I said, like if you're wanting to get into exercise to help with ADHD, my recommendation is really just don't focus on the actual exercise. Don't focus on the intensity or the severity of it. Focus on making it a habit and focus on doing it every single day for like 10 minutes or let's say 5 minutes, because you need to get that habit going where you actually, it's so natural. You need to get to a place where it's so natural where you don't even have to think about it anymore.
I'm interested to hear from you.
Oh, no, there goes Discord again.
That you wanted to do, a thing that you wanted to integrate, but that you realized you couldn't do in a big thing at once, and so you started a small habit. How did you take that from going from not doing it to that small habit that didn't feel satisfying and that didn't give that immediate dopamine hit? What worked for you at that point?
Funnily enough, so half of your question cut out, but then you repeated it luckily, so we're good. Basically, what I noticed, also don't mind me, I'm just fiddling with things here again, because I was in the foreground. I did, because I went so hard. No, because I went in with this mental goal of I'm doing this to help with my ADHD and not to go in with I didn't go in with a goal of getting like super fit, super swole immediately. It was basically just doing it for about 5 or 6 days. I already had it had a positive impact on my sleep quality. And that made me follow through with it, because I noticed on the days, or as soon as I started doing it, because I was very unfit at the time, so I didn't even need to do much. That's the thing. If you're coming from a place where you're not very active and not very fit, you don't need to do much to reap those benefits. I just noticed that on the day when I was doing it, I slept better. And
did you find that was from cardio or from when you were doing weightlifting? Both?
No, that was just walking. That was just basic walking. I was just walking on the treadmill. We're gonna rehost the call real quick. Give us 1 second, chat, because it's being silly.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, everybody, for bearing with us. It doesn't even let me read your swap, but oh well, we'll see. Hopefully this fixed it. Discord thing.
Sorry, folks. Yeah, we think this might be because of the region that we're being assigned the call in Discord. As FG says, it's not letting us change it. We'll have to see how we do.
Hopefully no more cutouts. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Maybe we could change to video on if there's a last resort. But
yeah,
carry on with your point.
Yeah. No, it's just I went into this whole thing with the goal of sleeping better, because I was having such a tough time falling asleep.
Me too.
And such a small thing had such a big impact. So I kept doing it a bit longer each time, because once you start, that's the thing. That's why I say just focus on doing it for 5 minutes, because once you start, you're much more likely to keep going and then to like keep pushing yourself. And if you already like, if you do it for 5 minutes and then you say, okay, I'm done, that means you already have accomplished something though. You have already checked off the goal, and you want those small goals that you have like to be small, so you can be like, check mark, yes, I did it, I'm done, we finished it. And that gives you a dopamine boost as well. So, and then it kind of just, for me, just snowballed from there. And I did it more because I got fitter, so I walked for longer, which then had a positive impact on more of those ADHD traits that you display when you're unmedicated. Because even if you don't feel a big dopamine boost from doing exercise, like people with ADHD don't really get a runner's high, but you still get it, and it still fills up your baseline somewhat. So for me, it led to regaining executive function, for not constantly dopamine seeking with food. So I actually started this whole movement, as I said, to help with the ADHD. The weight loss at the start was like a side effect. It wasn't even a weight loss. It was the realization that when I did workouts, I had less desire, or less, not desire, but like the random thoughts of like, oh, I'm just going to have a nibble there, or I'm going to have a nibble there, or I want this. And like the food noise disappeared to a degree. And I just naturally started losing weight, which I then capitalized on, and it kind of snowballed from there. So that's how it was for me. And that worked up to a point. Basically, until I got to goal weight, it worked. But there's a reason why I'm now on meds, because at some point in time, it helps you get to a very good level. But at some point in time, you cannot exercise more to generate more dopamine. Like, unless you're like, I don't know, a rich millionaire and you don't have to work. I don't know how your experience though was, because you've done like sort of exercise on and off throughout this journey. You've done a bit there and a bit there. And like, how have you felt the effects of it, or the lack of effect? Because you did stop, right? So
yeah,
why did that happen?
Well, it's interesting for me because I did way more exercise before I got my diagnosis and before I got onto medication. So I went from being obese in lockdown and lost about 120 pounds, and I was boxing at the time, so I was in great shape. And then more recently, I haven't been exercising at all outside of a fair amount of walking every day. And I'm at the point where I have been struggling to try and incorporate that into my routine. And I have been talking on my own show a lot about the challenges of that, and about realizing that I have been burned out because I have been trying to work and also do streaming and do this show and all of these things, which I'm not complaining about. I love doing them, but that I had reached a point of that burnout without realizing that I was, because I didn't realize that I could be a person who could burn out. I think it's a very common ADHD thing to have a very deep-seated insecurity about how much you accomplish, even when you're doing a lot. And so I was doing a lot, I am doing a lot, and had reached a point where it was affecting my sleep. I wasn't sleeping enough. I think I have, until very recently, been chronically deprived of sleep. And all of those things have put me at a point where the medication, the Elvance, has really kicked it up a lot and has allowed me to focus and do things. But I think I have sort of like gone up 10 and gone down 6, you know, because of the way that I've been living. And in that situation for me, I have desired to go to the gym, and I've desired to get that into my life and become a thing, but I have just completely failed to do it. And completely failed is perhaps a different, you know, might have a bit of a sort of self-critical, phrasing to it, but it hasn't happened. And so I am interested in today, because I think you're at a point where you've embedded it into your life and your routine a lot, and it is having these sort of defined known effects for you. You know, you said it's helping your sleep, it's helping your diet and all of these things. And I'm at the point where I have done all these kinds of things before, but now with the lifestyle I have, a very busy one, I'm struggling to build it in, and I've just realized that I have been burning out. So my sort of angle on today is to contribute talking about the stage where you want to put something into your life and the sort of challenges and baby steps of getting to that point where it starts to happen. Things like 5 minutes, you know, establish the floor instead of the ceiling, you know, all of those things. But yeah, for me now, the point is the difficulty. I've done a little bit. I have a machine at home that I use, but I want to go to the gym and haven't. So I'm very much at that point of common ADHD, sort of like which comes first. Like I need the exercise to help get me functioning, but I need functioning to help get me to the exercise. And where I'm at in doing more exercise now is in learning to take better care of myself in ways that I can manage doing. So I'm going to bed earlier. I'm turning off all my devices much earlier in the day. Those kinds of things. I am investing more time in enjoying taking care of my environment for its own sake, and those kinds of things form the building blocks. Because I think when you have a sort of desire to do something, but you're also at a point where you feel very diminished, you might be burned out. I think if you're neurodivergent, one of the biggest signs of that is your world gets a bit smaller every day around you. You know, you do one less hobby, you see fewer people around the place. You might stop doing something you'd enjoyed because the challenge of just doing those things feels like it gets bigger. And I think for a lot of people, not just myself, facing that sort of reality is an important part of getting to the point where you can do something that's really good for you, like exercise.
Yeah, no, that's it's definitely and I think this is like also a struggle for people that got like us diagnosed as adults and then got medication. It's like very tempting to use that burst of energy to just go because it is a stimulant medication. If you're on stimulant medication, for us, that's what we are taking, so that's what we can like talk about. It is very easy to then also ignore your body signals that your body is maybe trying to send you and just to overdo it. I did that one day as well with the gym because I'm really enjoying the gym, so I went a lot. I went like 3 days in a row. I just did a lot, and then like come Monday it was stream time and I was just like nope. Body went like nah. And it's hard for us to, even on meds, to like see those signals sometimes from our body, which is why I still love external tools. Just pointing to this thing again because it's amazing and helpful and glorious. And
did you shout out your 45?
On stream? Oh, heck yeah. But no, I haven't talked about it yet. I just got
okay, sorry, I interrupted you. Carry on.
No, all good. I'm very proud of that. I've definitely talked about it on stream. Heck yeah. But it's so it's a book. What I would recommend is a book. Some people don't like it, but I found, because this is not a book designed for people with ADHD. It's a book for people that are struggling to form routines. Some think it's very trivial. Maybe those are the people that don't have a problem establishing routines. It's a book called Atomic Habits. And atomic as in it's minute, tiny, minuscule changes every single day will compound and eventually lead to a very big change. So I would recommend that book to everybody that is trying to like form a habit, just to get like a handle on how to start a habit. because you start with like the tiniest step, and you need to make it as easy as possible to attain that step. So as I said, when I started working out, I literally made it so that I needed to go upstairs, turn the treadmill on, and push the go button. That was it. I didn't go hard. I didn't even put on running shoes. I just walked in my socks. Like I did that. Like that's small of a step. Like just going upstairs, turning it on, hitting the button. Like that's like 3 things. It's not hard. That made it really easy. Like that made that floor to like, or the hoops to jump through to get started so incredibly low that it became doable. And then I just did it for so long, and like always put a check mark basically. So I kept track of it and put like a check mark down. And it's like, yay, I did it. And then next day I did it. And then it became almost without thinking this habit of, I'm going to have dinner and then I'm going to go upstairs and walk a little bit on the treadmill. Like it wasn't even long. Like it was like 10, 15, 20 minutes at most at the start. And eventually that then evolved into going outside for walks. But that took a long time. That was like probably 5-6 months into this whole thing. So that made it a bit more difficult, because that would be like, okay, I have to put on outside trousers, I have to put shoes on, I have to put a coat on because it was winter. But by that time, it was so ingrained in such a habit that it's those weren't hurdles anymore to overcome. But the thing is, like, so that's why I'm saying, like, don't try to go like super duper big. Like, don't do the whole, I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna get like gym clothes and like I'm gonna get like this big old outfit and stuff like that. Like, make it as easy as possible. Like even now, when I in the mornings before stream, either go to the gym, like, or go or plan on going walking, I put my clothes on my nightstand that I'm going to wear. I'm going to put my heart rate monitor on the nightstand. If I'm going to the gym, I prep my electrolyte drink. I put it in my backpack. I put a towel in my backpack. I get out my key and my gym key, put it on top of the bag. And then the only thing I need to do in the morning is put on my shoes, grab my headphones and go, and my phone. So it's like, make it as easy as possible, or make it as easy as possible to start. Like for the first 2 years of me exercising, I didn't go to the gym. I literally just started this like 5 weeks ago. And now it's like this happy place for me where I can go and like, I can do stuff. I can push myself. I can grow. And that's the thing eventually, because if you get over that first hurdle, which I know is the hardest, but if you can keep track of it somehow, one way or another, either write it down every day. Today I walked 5 minutes. Today I walked 10 minutes. Today I did this. Or you already have a fitness watch, for example. Track your steps, track your distance that you walk. Like for me, this tool of my watch is like linked to my fitness journey so much, because without it, I doubt I would be as far as I am now, because like these external metrics and these numbers and it telling me, hey, you walked longer today, faster. You walked longer today and faster today and had a lower heart rate. Like all of that is like external data that gives me a little bit, shiny bit of dopamine. And it's just been like, it's very individual. What works for me won't work for everybody, but it's like, find the little things in this that can give you joy. Like maybe get like a big giant poster that you put on the wall that has all the days of the month on it. And then every time you do it, you give yourself a sticker or a star, or you make an X or a check mark or something like that. As small and trivial as it is, like it does help reinforce this sort of behavior. And try to like always do it at the same time. Do something what Atomic Habit calls habit stacking. You're doing one thing, and then try to make it so that doing that one thing becomes inextricably linked to the next thing that you're going to do. Like as I said, when I go to bed, I brush my teeth and I walk around and grab my clothes for the next day for the gym and things like that. Or you just make it this thing of, okay, it's dinner time. I've had dinner. I'm going to put my stuff in the dishwasher and I'm going to go upstairs. Like, I'm not even going to return back to my seat where I ate. I'm going to go upstairs directly. And just like these, and this is why it's atomic. These tiny little changes, if they all compound, can make a big difference. You will also stumble and fall on the way. And there will be days where you don't want to do it. But those are the days where it's going to feel the best if you do actually push through it and do it. Because you can be like, I really didn't want to do this today, but I did it. And that's satisfying for everybody, regardless of whether or not you're like ADHD or autistic or neurotypical. That's like, you know, that's the thing. And unfortunately, one last point, and then I'm gonna end this monologuing.
Sorry.
It is not going to be sunshine and daisies every single day when you're doing it. It's gonna suck sometimes. You're gonna not want to do it. You're gonna be sore. Ultimately, you still need to want it. That's the thing. You don't need to just wish it and go like, oh, I wish I could do this, or I wish I had the thing. You need to want it. And that can be difficult. Like, but that's like part of this. You need to really go and dig deep and figure out, what do you want and how do you want to achieve it? And are you okay going through like the hard times for it? Like, is that worth it for you? Because if not, then if you're just wishing for it, it's probably not going to happen, I would say.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I just sort of clock something that I think I do when I am in that place of wanting to do something like the gym. And I think part of it is that you're really suffering when you're in ADHD state and you want to do something and you haven't. And, you know, it's a very old as time, super familiar, super sucky feeling of frustration and stuckness and all of that. And that's suffering, you know, that's really hard. That sucks. No one wants to feel that way. And when you're in that kind of state, I think part of wanting to do something in a big, exciting and impressive way is the dopamine in itself. I think that for us, there's always that sort of like, I don't know if the right word is neurochemical kind of part of it. That's almost separate from like what we think, what we feel. It's like thinking I'm going to do the whole big thing gives you a hit of dopamine, right? Basically. And so that's an appeal of it. But also I think the appeal of the idea of doing a big gym session, a big perfect thing, is the feeling that that is going to be something that's going to save you from your situation. It's going to be the thing that sort of symbolically pulls you out of the sadness and the frustration that you feel as someone who can't do the gym, or, you know, whatever your thing is. It could be any number of things you want to achieve when you have ADHD. And I think what can be really hard with doing a small thing is the fact that on a level, I say this from my own experience, on a level I'm aware of, but also on a level I think is even a little bit more sort of subconscious, doing a little thing is sort of like an acceptance of me having to be where I am now and how I feel now. If I say I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to do the big gym session, and then I'm going to come out, you know, jacked, that's an escape fantasy. And that feels, you know, great. But if I say I'm going to go and do 5 minutes of something, I know damn well I'm still going to be Tim with these difficult feelings at the end of it. And the sort of the truth and the goodness of everything you said about it, 100% bang on the money. For me, I think the part of the sticking point is that, like, if I say I'm going to do that tiny little thing, then that means I have to accept that these really difficult feelings are going to be around for a lot longer than I want them to. And I think that contributes to why I avoid doing it, quite a lot of the time.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, I don't know if people like necessarily realize like how low the ceiling is that I gave myself when I started. Like now I put in like crazy hours at the gym. Like I go do cardio, I lift heavy, I push like numbers and stuff like that. And like this morning I at 6:45 I did a freaking spin class for 45 minutes, right? Like pushing myself, do like 170 like heart rate and all that sort of stuff. But that's not how I started. That's where I'm now 2+ years later. When I started, I struggled to walk a kilometer.
Yeah.
Like I was out of shape as heck. And like accepting that wasn't easy. That I let myself get to that point, but I finally understood why I got to that point, and at that point had realized, yeah, this entire time I was pretending I was fine during COVID. I really wasn't all that fine, There was a lot of dopamine seeking on to like just not pay attention to what was going on in the world and like feel good regardless, even though I really wasn't. And the thing is, like, when you try to do this, try to not get the dopamine from doing the big session, but try to get it from the consistency. Try to become a person that can do things consistently and regularly and form things into a habit, because that is hard. Everybody can go to the gym once and push themselves so hard that, they can't walk for the next 10 days. The people that are impressive are the ones that show up regularly and do and work on themselves over and over and over. That's what's impressive.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Try. That's why I'm saying like this was so instrumental for me, because this kept me. It was very easy to keep track of progress, and that can be, that was like getting fitter, getting faster, being able to go for longer. Obviously, eventually, then the weight loss, which came along as well, which helped a lot, because holy heck, do you get dopamine when that happens every week, which you probably also realized. And then when you hit maintenance suddenly and like you don't get that anymore, that definitely hits different. Yep. And but I'm not saying go out, buy a smartwatch. You can start tracking it on a sheet of paper. And then if you, I don't know, if you're just starting out, get yourself a sheet of paper, make it a grid, make it 25 by 25 or whatever, or like whatever grid you want. And then maybe after the first 5 days, put a little reward in. After another 5 days, put another reward in. After the next 10 days, put another reward in. After the next 15 days, put a little reward in. And I'm not saying reward yourself with like this big giant purchase, but maybe you buy a small little indie game that you wanted, or you're making yourself a nice dinner that evening, or maybe you have a little treat, have a little ice cream treat or something like that. Like, where reward yourself for consistency, not for the necessary output. Reward yourself for consistency. And then do that with more and more things over time. If you're trying to build habits and like gain that executive function that we also struggle with when with ADHD, because that's the whole thing. That's the funny, that not even funny, it's not funny. I use the word funny because it's to describe it. It's this thing where I started with just that working out thing, but then that spiraled into being able to have executive function and do other things that, normally require so much mental effort because it's just one of those things that you have to do over and over and over again. And neurotypical people deal with it by not even having to really think about it, right? Like for them, emptying the dishwasher doesn't become this giant mountain where it's like, I really need to do it because I need to put more things into it because I have like literally no dishes to eat off and stuff like that. But to get to that point is difficult. But for some reason, like tracking the consistency with one thing and then tracking the consistency with more things from there, it all stacked together into the system that eventually then started working. And now I have like, my morning is like such a routine. I mean, it differs a little bit day to day depending on what day it is and whether or not I like go walking, or it's Wednesday and we've got a cleaner coming around, or it's a gym day. But like ultimately it's kind of the same. It's like, get up, put on clothes, make breakfast, have breakfast, say bye to Lex, get ready to do the thing that we're doing, do the thing, come back home, do some studying, prepare stream, do stream. Like it's like it all just stacks together. And like, funnily enough, little things like I can call things like emptying the dishwasher little things now, because it's like, I look over, oh, I see the laundry basket. I could do a load. Okay, yeah, let's just do that real quick. Like just shove it in there and like just get it started. It literally takes 10 seconds. Like I grab the gloves, put them in, turn the dial, put in the pod, close the doors, done. Like that is luckily at this point, it's become things I don't need to think about anymore. There are still things that I do need to think about. Like I'm very glad that Lex is in charge of like bed linen, because I will always forget when they need doing, but he doesn't, which is great. But most of those small things, they've just become non-things or non-problematic things for me, which I literally credit like that executive function that I started gaining with having the regular influx from dopamine from working out. Which obviously, as I said, like it gets you to a base limit. It doesn't reach as far as medicine. Like exercise is not a substitute for medication. It is not, because it was like I got to a level of executive function that was really good, but like the discipline and the mental like fortitude and like anxiety and like attention that it took is non-describable compared to like how it is now on meds. Like
for sure.
It's such a helpful tool. I cannot stress how helpful it is, especially if you're just starting out, where you might not even be diagnosed, you're just suspecting it, you're struggling a lot. Like working on that and using that extra dopamine from that is so helpful and advantageous. It's just, as you said, that first step to get it to be a habit, that's hard. And
I think when you have when you're in that kind of first set point, I think another way you can describe it is that you're in that depleted place, right? You know, you're low, but you're in that place where your ability to function is at its most, its lowest. I was going to say weakest, but I don't think that's a great word to use. You're really depleted, so everything becomes really hard, and the suffering is there. So you don't want it to be there. You know, surprise, you're a human being. You don't want to hurt. So you have that combo of not being able to do much and really wanting to not be where you are. And I think one thing I just sort of realized for myself is that when I'm in that place, when I think about doing those small baby steps that do get you out of it, I think I sort of feel in a way that my mental state and my suffering is going to remain as it is the whole rest of the journey that I'm thinking about going on, like the whole time for exercise and stuff, and that it's not going to give me anything and any improvement. And I know now from so many times when I've gone through that low phase and built something in that helps, I always remember this little moment of surprise, and usually a really happy surprise, when I go, oh, wait, no, this does feel better. It feels different from how it was when I was right in the bottom of the hole. And I think there's something there, because, you know, when you have the idea of doing a small change and being in that really low state, like I said, you can think that it's like not going to get you out of it, and that the suffering is going to continue, and that only that big thing will save you from it, from feeling like crap. And I think you can kind of miss out and forget or not really see that, in actual fact, getting yourself out of that really low place doesn't take much. It's like the action, it can be small. It feels like it has to be massive, but that's kind of like an illusion. It's a bit of a trick. So when you're in that low state, you're like, man, this is so painful. It sucks so much. Only a giant thing could ever get me out of here. Because, like, God, I feel so depressed. I feel so stressed. I feel so anxious about the idea of it. Even just thinking about doing something positive makes me feel terrible. So it's kind of logical to go like, well, that means that it has to be a big thing to get me away from it. And I think part of the sort of the sad situation I've ended up in a lot of times, only realizing it when I get out of it, is like I was sort of like in the bottom of the pit, and there's a ladder in front of me, and the first step of the rung is like a little bit, you know, up from the floor, and I have to put one foot there onto it, and then I can manage that, but it feels like I have to jump 10 feet. And I'm just like, I could never jump 10 feet. How the hell am I going to do that? I better just do nothing. And it's only when I actually manage to make a little step, and then I look back, I'm like, oh, right. It's actually the other way around. Like, the step I have to take is small, but the benefit mentally that I get out of it is actually massive. It's the opposite of what I think it's going to be. When I'm depressed and low, I'll set my webcam, always playing up.
Oh, no.
When I'm really, really low, got 4 Tims now for the price of 1.
There we go.
When I'm in that kind of low state, the thing that actually works the most is the small thing that makes a massive difference. But my depression, my low state, tricks me into thinking it's the other way around. So I think there's almost like a kind of leap of faith situation that you have to go through. And as you do grow older, you have more times when you look back and you've done that, and you can kind of get wise to it. But you kind of have to ignore everything your mind is telling you and say, no, a small thing really is actually enough here. It will be enough to get me out of this pit. And I just sort of have to jump out of the nest and trust that I'll be able to fly when I do. But for me, more and more as I've gone through that cycle of being in low places, I'm in a low place now. I've been here before. I know I can get out of it. There is an element of sort of willfully ignoring everything your brain is telling you at the moment and just being like, nope, not going to listen to you. I'm sorry that you're suffering right now. This is really tough. You know, I feel for you, but I am going to do this small thing because I know from experience that you're not telling me the truth right now, in a way. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like, it's, and I have to reiterate, like, as you're saying, like, I also was at that point at that time, very much so. And it at that point, you kind of like, well, nothing else was working, so I might as well try this and see. And like, just keep going with it and see if a positive change happens. And it is such a strong, the problem is when neurotypicals describe this, like this burst of energy and happiness that they get from working out, we really can't relate to it because we just don't get it. It just works much and this is unfair because it's so much, it's more subtle. It takes much longer to take effect as well. Like, it's not instantaneous. It's like, if you do this consistently, there's the consistency again, it will raise your dopamine levels over time, and you get that level where your brain is just working this little bit better. And it just compounds if you then also work on other things. It is hard. It's heckin' hard. It's not easy. It sucks that we have to manage this condition so hard or so much. I think that we can rightly be upset about that sometimes. You can be at that point where you're like, God, why do I have this brain that works like that? And why do I have to jump through all of these hoops just to like function and stuff like that? And that can really suck, and it can be really frustrating. But that's why it's really important to celebrate those little wins, to celebrate that consistency that will help you building a habit that eventually becomes a routine where you don't have to think about it anymore because you just get up and do it. And it all just starts like I sound like I'm on repeat here, but it just starts with such a small thing, and then work on one small thing consistently. It is so tempting to try and do the big push and the big thing and like change everything overnight, but whatever got you to this state also didn't happen overnight most of the time. It takes a long time, like especially like, for example, what always comes up with us is the being overweight, being obese. That did not happen overnight. The things that led to it did not happen overnight. It's a long process, and it's a long process to unravel it and to come to terms with it. And there are still things where I also struggle with, and I find myself sometimes slipping into old behaviors and stuff like that. And then like, it's ongoing, and yes, it's unfair and it sucks. And sometimes I wish I didn't have a brain like this, but it is what it is, and we're going to make the best of it, and we're going to use all the tools that we have. And exercise is a very, very good tool in our toolbox for that. And once again, we don't need much to get started. You just need yourself. Necessarily, you might need a pair of shoes if you want to walk outside. But you can even walk in your apartment or in your room or in your house, and you don't need to go outside if you don't want people to see you do stuff, which I can totally relate to. There are a bajillion free workout videos on YouTube, all levels of exercise, very fit, literally for people that can't like stand up or like they have to sit, like, and it doesn't cost anything. Like, the barrier of entry is so low, and you can get started with those and then work from there, and just work on that consistency. This is all I can repeat, which is so hard. It's like the hardest bit. It's like, that's the challenge, really, consistency. So focus on that.
I get what you mean. Yeah.
Focus on that rather than the big thing, and then observe how that affects you over time.
Yeah. I think that what you're touching on there is not just the small thing, but a progression, right? There's one thing that popped up. I have my notepad in front of me on my screen, so nice. I can remember what I want to say instead of forgetting all the time. One thing before I touch on that is, you talked about habit stacking. I watched a short video which I shared on my stream earlier today, I think, about a dietitian, a woman who I think is an ADHD dietitian, and she talked about what I mentioned earlier about your world getting a bit smaller around you when you're in a low state or a burned out state and you're neurodivergent, and how even things like hobbies, things that are fun, that are good for you, become challenges to do. And she was talking about how it is really important. It's not just a recreation sort of thing for us. It is vital for us to have different sources of joy and pleasure in our lives, because they are pillars and foundations that help to sustain our executive function. So for me, I felt very pleased with myself in the last week because I watched a couple of movies downstairs. And for a long time, just the thought of watching something like that felt like a challenge that I couldn't do. I would reach the end of the day after streaming and working, and I'm like, man, I can't even put a movie on, because even that feels like a task I don't have the brain for. But doing so has been really good, and I've enjoyed myself, and it's become another source of dopamine at a different point in my day. So it's not just a thing throughout the week. It means that throughout the flow of my day, as you know, we have this ebb and flow of dopamine, I have another point in the day where I can expect enjoyment of something. And it's been really good. It's been so helpful. And I think we all naturally have those different blockers at different times. You know, for me, I get up super early, as everyone knows. I start my stream at 5 in the morning, and that means that I'm getting a big glut of dopamine, of the validation of being online and people saying hello and talking to you, playing a video game or whatever I'm doing, more dopamine. And then I start my work day and there's a slump. And I think depending on your habits, good or, you know, challenging, and medication, whatever, loads of different things, you're going to have a different ebb and flow of dopamine throughout your day. And adding in something is really good. And habit stacking is sort of something that ties into that, because you were saying habit stacking, you know, doing one thing that flows into another. If you're a person who is like me and you're in that state right now where you're low and where you may have slowly pushed out or stopped doing things that give you happiness and joy, and you don't have many sources of dopamine in your day and in your week, then any of those points where you do get a hit of something is really, really good. And I should have that off. I don't know if that went through. Anywho, I can relate to that with the food as well. For me, that's a really big part of it. The dopamine of food is a really significant thing in my day. It's a really big part of the day for me. And if I'm in a really depleted state, one thing that I can do is I can say, okay, if I need to build in that 5 minutes of exercise, how about I do that right before I have my meal, my dinner, or my breakfast? If I'm going to try habit stacking so that one thing flows into another thing, and if I know that I'm in a place where I don't have many sources of dopamine during the day, how about I habit stack that 5 minutes of exercise right before I get a dopamine hit, and then I'm going to build that association, you know? Then that 5 minutes of walking or whatever it is something that I learn through habit to be linked to a dopamine reward. And I think that's a really good way to use habit stacking sort of strategically. If you're in that depressed low state where you don't have many moments of the day where you get a feel good, if you're going to have a meal and it's going to have loads of carbs in it, sure, put something in before it and make it really small so that floor is really low. And then that gives you an extra boost of forming that habit, and that carries you to the point where it starts to become self-sustaining.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. That's Like it's like in the book, I think they describe it as like doing something while having like your cup of coffee, and like, you know, have that coffee, but then also, I don't know, do like a crossword puzzle or something like that. Like make that, link it like that.
Hmm.
And no, I think what you bring up is a fantastic point. Um, Basically create something for your brain to look forward to. Exactly. That is exactly how
For Tim's.
that would that should work. I don't actually see that.
I hope it's an HDMI cable. I think it is. Yeah. I hope it's not the camera. Carry on.
No, hopefully not. No, it's like no, I was, yeah, no, I think exactly that is the that's the whole point. That's how you use habit stacking as a person with ADHD. You tie those habits to habits that give you dopamine already, and then try and get that dopamine more also from the consistency of consistently achieving a task that you want to do, which is so much harder than it actually sounds. Because like to like explain it for neurotypical folk, like it can be like brushing your teeth can be a difficult thing for people with ADHD, autistic people, and stuff like that. Like because it's not something that's automatic. It's something we have to think about. It's a task that we have to think about. And if you can like make that into a task that you don't have to think about, that is such a mental load that is like removed. It's ridiculous. And I think what you suggested can really, 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 really help with that.
Yeah, that feels like a really. I just sort of clicked while we've been talking. I think that's in a lot of ways that's kind of what we're describing when we talk about this and when we talk about other things, right? It's like, how can we use all of these tools available to unstick ourselves and to get ourselves to make those steps? Because we know from having talked about other subjects as well that it is the perception of the size of the thing, not the size of the thing itself, that is the challenge, right? And it's it can be sort of like, well, I have to do this new thing in isolation, like I have to do the exercise and it's just going to be this tax and I can't afford it. But tricks like that, like, yeah, if I'm going to have food, have a good dinner, enjoy it, and then just slip something in right before. And then, before you know it, you'll be at a point where you've crossed that threshold and you're able to have something that integrates more into your life. And I think one of the things that is challenging about that is that's really good and really helpful. But, earlier on I mentioned when you're really low with this kind of neurodivergent burnout or depression or whatever form of suffering you have, is that attachment to how much you're hurting and how much you want it to stop, and that acceptance that it's probably going to take a little bit longer, that it has its own schedule, is a really big part of it mentally too, I think. And that's not necessarily a thing that has to be like depressing to think about. I think it's really important to think about. In chat while we've been talking, people have been sharing their own different accounts of how they deal with that. Talking about how it's hard for them to face up to the idea of doing something that feels positive in a few different ways that I've noticed. And I think the sort of the realization and the acceptance that these kinds of changes do have their own schedule in a way, and that they are probably going to take longer than you want them to, is a really hard thing to accept, particularly around exercise. But I think it's a really necessary one, because I think if you don't do that in whatever way you need to do, it just becomes another very powerful sticking point, and it becomes another weight around your ankles that holds you back from making those little baby steps that can surprisingly get you out of the pit and get you moving again. And for a lot of people, like I've been saying in my last couple of points in our conversation today, a lot of people are at a point where they're very low and depleted, and the sort of amount of energy they have and the amount of force they can make to get moving is really, really low. And so like all of those things are precious, and like using the planner is an amazing thing for kind of like maximizing the amount of result you get out of that little tiny ember of energy that you have to do something with. You know, habit stacking is really effective at maximizing the results out of that little push you can give yourself. And in my experience, thinking about why I want things to happen quickly and finding a way to accept that these things will take a certain amount of time and that it might be a slower process than I want to is very difficult, but it is a worthy thing to do, because then it loosens the hold of that thing, and it becomes one less weight that pulls me back and one less thing that sort of detracts from that little push I can make myself do.
Yeah, also something, I know you said like that for you that the time required seems so like such a rough point because it's so long. But the thing is, like, I have a counterpoint to that. Time passes anyways. Like, just imagine if you had started that one thing that you're planning to do at the start of this year, would have done it consecutively and consistently for over 3 months at this point. Like, and that's like, if you imagine, like, let's say your goal was 10 minutes of exercise every single day. If you had kept up with that, and I mean, maybe that could be just 10 minutes of walking, that would have been, or even like, that would have been almost like 10,000 minutes of walking at this point. Like, that is a lot. It adds up, and time passes anyways. The year just go. Yes, I know the next like 24 hours or 10 hours or whatever, like, may seem super hard and you're like struggling to get through it. But if you like look at the date now, it's like, it's almost April. It's almost the middle of April already. Like, it was just January, really. So it's like, try to like think about time a bit differently when you get into that funk, because it's really easy like to think like, oh God, I have to do this for months, this is going to take forever. But then I say, like, yeah, but think back, how long ago was Christmas at this point? Like, how much time has passed since then? And imagine if you had started then. As I said, like this is something that comes up like also in weight loss communities. Like, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. Right? So, because time will pass anyways, and there will be progress, and you will get there if you start it. Like, that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. You need to just try and get started, and then it will click, and just keep up the consistency. Don't do too much too quickly. Just do what you can, and then eventually it'll get there, and it'll snowball. And like, I like if you had told me like 2 years ago where I'd be now, I would have been like, you are insane, this is never going to happen, that is such a long time, that's ridiculous, it's never going to happen, that is, how can I, like, what? But like, just because I'd made little changes every single day, I eventually got there. And this is something that I want to bring up, because somebody who's listening might be thinking this, and it is a valid point that this person might be thinking, that right now I'm enjoying and getting a lot of dopamine from the exercise, but I also get a lot of enjoyment and dopamine from seeing numbers get better and bigger, and there's like progress. And this is definitely something that we with ADHD can definitely fall into chasing what you mentioned as well, to chase getting better, getting stronger, getting faster, getting like, because we don't get the dopamine just from staying on that level. We want the dopamine also from like getting better and doing more and progressing and stuff like that. And I'm hoping that me being aware of that is enough to like counteract that. But I've very well fall into that trap as well. But it's good to then, I think, try and diversify your hobbies and do a few other things where you can potentially then switch your interest to, and like switch the whole like trying to make progress. Like you can switch it to that, right? Like be it like an instrument or a language and stuff like that. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Exercise is like it's like learning a skill and getting better at it. It's something you have to train for. Once you get to a certain point where you want to like get super duper, like if you're chasing certain metrics and whatnot, which that's like at the point where I am now. But and eventually you hit that cap, right? Like that's just how the human body works. So just being aware of that, I think, is important as well. And I just wanted to bring that up, that I am aware, and hopefully that means I won't hit that wall. But yeah, that's why we have other hobbies as well that we do, right?
Yeah.
Not just working out.
Yeah, and I encourage people to think as well about the timing of those things, right? As I said earlier, you have the need for dopamine to sustain your brain to a degree that's greater than it is for a neurotypical person. We aren't able to produce it so much, so any sources we can get of it, including exercise, are really important for us, because we need them in a way to maintain a baseline that other people do not. And a good way to sort of take everything we've covered about exercise, or it could be learning that new instrument, and fit it in productively and effectively and reasonably into your life, is to take a notepad or open up a document, whatever works for you, and put down, honestly, might be a bit tricky if you feel bad about what your days are like, but honestly put down what happens in your day, and then think about, okay, let's say I make a little column in Word or Excel or whatever, or on paper, and I put down the things that happen and when they happen. And then I put a little tick next to something that I think is something that gives me dopamine, that gives me that release. And then I can look at the times and I can say, oh, okay, right. So in the morning, I wake up, I have a coffee, I might have a small bite to eat, and I put on my morning favorite Twitch stream. That's like 3 things that have dopamine association, especially for me, if you love drinking coffee. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe I then start my remote job, and God knows I don't get any dopamine from that stuff. And that goes on all the way through until lunch. And then I have lunch, and there's more dopamine there because there's carbs, and carbs give dopamine. And then maybe I'm like, oh, okay, so there's a really big gap between, that morning and midday, or that morning and evening. Maybe I'm a person who goes all the way from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then at 6 p.m. I watch a movie with my partner, and, we have dinner. It's like, again, dopamine. And if you're thinking about like, when can I put in that exercise, that building block of exercise that will become a thing that, again, gives me dopamine, or when can I put in, 20 minutes of a hobby, or 20 minutes of something else pleasurable, you can structure that amount of bandwidth you have and around the timing and the ebb and flow of your day. You can say, okay, cool. It would be great if I had something in the middle of these 2 things here, because there's a gap. Is my energy level okay there? Cool. Maybe that's a good time for that, instead of thinking about things that you want to do, but in a sort of general sense. And then, as we all do with ADHD, maybe saying, okay, now I want to do the exercise thing, or I want to do the hobby thing. But maybe you're doing it half an hour after you just did something that was already really pleasurable and dopamine releasing for you. That kind of planning of the ebb and flow of your day, and then maybe the ebb and flow of your week, can help you to maximize the amount of benefit and stability that you get out of anything that you add into your life.
Definitely. Also, like this is like something that I very personally experienced, because I find the more things that I do, the more I have time to do those things. Like the more stuff I want to do, the better I get at structuring the things that I want to do and managing the things that I need to do. And it like that's another cool thing about exercise. Yes, when you start it, it might start tiring you out, but eventually you'll get to that point, you get over that first hump where it actually energizes you, and it preps you for the day. Like for me, for example, like it is such a big difference if they tire me out about the same, but going for a like 70-minute, 80-minute walk versus going and doing like a 45-minute spin class, which is like really high intense energy and exercise, I actually get more energized from the high intensity exercise, and it primes you for the day, and you're like, heck yeah, I already did this thing, I got it done, let's go tackle the rest of the day and just like do the thing. Like as I said, like I got up, I made breakfast, I got dressed, made breakfast, went to the gym, did the spin class, walked the long way home. On the long way home, already listened to like this Japanese like talking lesson thing that I do. Come home, did a couple of chores, had a shower, threw on the stream, made dinner, and now we're here. Like it's just all like the more you like do things, the better you get at like managing your day and your time. Because that's also something that I personally struggle with as a person with ADHD. Like, even though I've done things for like ages, I still cannot tell you how long they take to do. Like I will always underestimate and all those things. Like it's so hard, which is why I'm tend to be like that person that, or was the person, because I wouldn't know how long it would take. I would plan with lots and lots of time just in case, so I'm not late, because being late, oh god, people will look at you and they will think you're that kind of person that's always late. And oh my god, like gosh, hated that. Like that is something that I got so like anxious about. And it's it's really, really, really hard and stuff like that. And then that's exactly that too. Exactly that Shrap brought up. These chores and looming tasks, we tend to overestimate the things that we don't want to do when they're starting to become this mountain. We tend to like blow it up because we don't realize how much, and then it becomes this mountain that we need to work with. And other comment, my friends tell me I'm busier than anyone else. I never feel like I do enough. That is, if you could solve that for all of us ADHD folk, that would be amazing, because I think we all feel this way. Like, I mean, we literally have talked about this on this podcast, how we both feel that we all, that the other person on the podcast does so much more, and we feel bad about how much we do. But we literally both feel that. It's like, it's brains just being brains. Yeah.
I'm interested to also cover diet, because that's such a big part of it. And it was very interesting when I was getting assessed, because my psychiatrist, really practical, very qualified dude, was constantly mentioning specific things around diet. It was like avocado, really good, eggs, really good. He was saying things like magnesium, all of these different bits and bobs that you can have in a pill, or you can get in foods and stuff. And I was like, wow, this must be a really big thing. And then he was talking about timing, not of just meals, but of carbohydrates in food. Saying in the morning, those really good foods like eggs and avocado and dietary supplements like magnesium or saffron is really good for ADHD people, have a really profound effect. And he was like, well, a lot of people with ADHD in the morning, they want to have carbs, but carbs can be a really poor choice to have a lot of in the morning, because it's something that primes your brain to get a big hit of dopamine super early on. And then that kind of sets the tone for the day. So he was like, try out these different things. He was talking about, some people do well on low carb diets. I did keto for a year. Keto is a almost no carb diet, and it really worked for me. I found out afterwards I have ADHD, and it's like, yeah, maybe that was a part of it too. But I think, that's a very challenging one to talk about, because like I mentioned a bit earlier, when you are in that depleted state, which is so much of a challenge, your available sources of dopamine plummet. And one of the most consistent and easiest and pleasurable ways to get that is from food. You don't have to, learn how to play an instrument for months until you feel you're getting satisfied and getting enjoyment out of it. You can open the fridge, and you have a reason to do it every day because you need food to live. And so I think for me, there's an interesting push-pull, because trying to optimize my diet around the things I know are relevant to ADHD, the things I just mentioned, like carbs at the right time, certain types of healthy food like eggs, avocado, healthy fats and things, have a positive effect on your brain, your function, and all of those things. But then there is the challenge of sort of reconciling and fitting that in with the fact that if I try and go too hard, too fast, I am not going to have success, because I am going to sort of hardline it, and I'm going to end up trying to remove one of my remaining sources of dopamine during the day. And so I think there's a very personal sort of discovery of like figuring out the theory stuff of what works diet wise for ADHD, and then realizing how your day generally tends to go and adjusting things around that reality, similar to if you work with a dietitian, in the gym, like a fitness instructor, qualified dietitian in one. In my experience, those guys don't say, hey, this is what you do and you're going to do it. The first questions they ask are, what do you usually eat and what do you enjoy? And then they adjust a plan around what you're doing, and you slowly change it away from the things that aren't helping you. You don't just go in like a wrecking ball and say that, no, burger bad, no burger, and hit yourself on the hand with a stick. You sort of balance the need that you have for that food, and the fact that it's going to be really hard for you to resist and to move to a air quotes perfect diet if you don't have much else enjoyment in your day because you're in a bad place. And I think that's just half kind of discovery of what the good nutrition and stuff is for ADHD. And then half that kind of allowing yourself to tailor things to your own fingerprint, your own unique sort of setup, your own foibles, your preferences and stuff. And to do that in a kind of accepting way where you're like, oh man, you know what? Right now, at that point in the day, it really helps me get through if I can look forward to a meal that I'm going to enjoy. I should make it a healthy meal, but maybe I can sort of say, okay, that's a point in the day where that's a really good thing for me because it helps me have something to look forward to, and the enjoyment really picks me up and gives me a good shot at like a bit of a mood boost in the afternoon. So maybe I'll keep that and try and make it healthy and work around it instead of trying to sort of cut it out. That's been challenging for me. It's a delicate one, because at times you want to be forgiving and gentle, and at times you do need to be quite firm with yourself. And I think that plays into a lot of mental things like guilt around food and around all these different things that are very individual. But I think that's a really big hand in hand with exercise. So interested to hear what that's been like for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been, for me, for example, because dopamine seeking with eating, like from food, was like my main dopamine source, next to like excessive caffeine consumption, ever since I was a teenager. And so obviously, eventually I got on that weight loss diet. I mean, I would always still have like a pizza once a day, like not once a day, once a week, you know, with a deficit, but I still have pizza once a week, for example. Just have a different kind of pizza nowadays. But I switched my entire diet around to be like high protein, low calorie, high volume, because I was still trying to feed that beast that just wants the food, right? And for me, for example, personally figured out there is no diet that fixes that beast. There just is not.
Yeah.
That's my reason. That's the main reason I quote unquote gave in and finally pursued medication, even though like I wanted to try it anyways, but you know, because of family history, I had to go through some extra hoops, because stimulant medication for, you know, if you've got heart disease in the family, you know, they want to test you for certain things. So that threw in like, you know, some hoops that I needed to get through, and they like my knee just wasn't strong enough for me to jump through those hoops. But that at that point, I was done. I was in maintenance. I'd been in maintenance for three months at that point. So basically trying to eat you know, not gain any weight, not lose any weight. And it was just like the food noise was just getting worse and worse. And it's like, no, this is ridiculous. So I finally did it. And then like, now I'm on meds. It's like, it's night and day. I cannot stress how important it's been in that regard. And for me, I got to this point now where it like flipped again because of the effects of meds. I had to completely rethink my diet again to like high calorie, low volume, high protein. And I only like do like two and a half meals. I do breakfast and then dinner. I might have a small snack at lunch, like a small snack. Like today I had a slice of roast beef and some gummy bears. That was my snack. But like, I mean, when I say some gummy bears, I mean like 5 gummy bears, right? Things like that, because I just can't eat when the meds are in like peak effect. But then I have a big dinner and then I have a dessert after dinner. But I have the room for all of that because I work out and I try to fuel my body for my workouts to, you know, grow muscles, get faster, get stronger and stuff like that. But yeah, protein in the morning is like amazing for helping with ADHD. It will keep you full. It supplies those building blocks that your body just requires to maintain itself and the brain. And also, if you are on stimulant medication, it makes them more effective. It just does. It's really important. It's been proven. Something that I actually realized today and like last Friday, since I started doing like early morning gym sessions, electrolytes, so important. They make such a huge difference. Consuming electrolytes, holy heck. Basically, they today completely eliminated my dry mouth. Like my dry mouth went like away. It's ridiculous. Like for today. And I've been talking now for basically like 9 hours at this point.
God, I have to try that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like just like small little things like that. But then, as I said, yeah, like making sure that you also have enough vitamin D, getting magnesium in, and all that sort of stuff is also like very important. Though it is important to time the magnesium because it can lower the uptake of ADHD meds. So you shouldn't take it simultaneously and stuff like that as well if you're taking meds. Like at least with Elvans/Vyvanse, you should try to do like the magnesium in the evening, medication in the morning. Apparently that's what I heard, but it is still trying to figure it out, but it definitely, as a part of this whole exercise thing, I switched to this whole trying to, because I'm already working out, so why not supply my body with the good thing that makes me better at the exercise and lets me go longer and makes me stronger and helps me recover faster after exercise.
Yeah, I think that what just comes to mind as you're saying that is I think when you're trying to figure out how to get new things into your life, like exercise, or it could be a similar thing like going out more, being more social, and you have ADHD, I think there's a real tendency to sort of view things in a good or bad way. Like, this is a good thing, this is a bad thing, and to sort of moralize it a little bit, and to be a little bit of like a little bit of a draconian kind of person with yourself. And I get it. I think that's another attempt of you trying to just figure out what works. But I think the kind of thread that we're talking about here is honoring the fact that these sources of dopamine are really important for you is a thing that is really important to do. And it's a thing about acceptance again, right? It's not saying like, well, I know I have problems with food and I know I can binge eat and I feel ashamed of doing that, so food is now bad. It's like, no, it's not bad at all. And if you're in that place where you don't have many sources of enjoyment in your day, food isn't a bad thing at all. And in fact, allowing yourself to enjoy a meal within, diet as much as you can, is actually a kind thing, and it's a good thing. I think that's a thread that is really, really key throughout this episode. Instead of saying like, I'm going to do exercise, or I'm going to do diet and exercise by removing the bad things and doing more of the good things, you can frame it around your need for that pleasure, that dopamine, and try to avoid that kind of black and white thinking, that negative, positive thinking. Because in the past, if you became obese, I became obese, food was really tough for me. And I definitely had a lot of internalized shame about it. Still do, still struggle with it. But I am at a point now where I can say, I need to honor the fact that my brain has certain needs that aren't normal that's not the best word, but that aren't typical. And it's okay for food to be one of those things. I just have to use it in the right context and in the right way. And that's really hard to do sometimes. If you have a tough history with things, it's not going to be easy. But I think that is a really important part of making these changes happen. Because, if you're in that place where you want to lose weight, but you can't, how the hell am I meant to say that food's a good thing when it's the thing that's made me feel bad? Working to that point where you can take that kind of holistic view and say, okay, well, maybe I can do that 5 minutes of exercise, and then maybe I can fit it in before the meal, and then maybe later on I'll do something small that's fun. in that way, you establish like a new baseline, a new flow of things where all of these points aren't just good or bad things on a little pedestal, having an egg thrown at them. They fit in with each other to support your needs, because you need to get your needs met and you deserve to, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I really enjoy like working out, and I don't eat clean all the time. It would be boring.
Yep.
Even though healthy food is tasty, you can make it super tasty. It doesn't have to be the bland white rice, chicken, and a veggie, that all the bodybuilders do. But I mean, part of why I go to the gym is so I can eat cookies and ice cream. Heck yeah. I mean, I make frozen yogurt at home with protein powder to get like protein in. So it's a nice sweet treat, but there's also protein in it. But like, that's part of it. Of course, it's a reward. I kicked butt at the gym. I, got a new PR when I did, I don't know, deadlifts or whatever. Heck yeah, I'm gonna like, have a little reward in that regard. Obviously not overdo it. There's a reason I still track my food, because I will never be able to do it intuitively. That's just my reality. It sucks. I have to come to grips with it, but it is what it is. And yeah, it's just we have to kind of figure out what works for you, and which tools you can like use, and which foods you can like substitute and stuff like that in there as well. Like as it like chat is like currently talking about, there are certain foods that you can substitute. Yes, they might not be amazing for you, like a protein bar that will still have some sugar or like sugar alcohols or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's better than having a candy bar.
Yeah.
Because it's going to have less calories, it's going to have more protein, which helps you if you're already working out and stuff like that. And it still will hit those dopamine receptors in the brain though, and give you like that little feedback there. So it's we don't need to be perfect. Like there is a desire to be perfect, but that would, first of all, that would be boring, and second of all, that the amount of stress and anxiety that would produce to like be like that, I can't even think about it. And that's everything in moderation, even moderation, basically.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the in terms of diet, the sort of the tendency we get a lot on things like social media as well is this really black and white. Like, this is super bad, this, don't do this, don't have that, it is very extreme, especially if you use things like TikTok or Instagram. Those are algorithmically set up to get your engagement and your time. And what engages you isn't always what's good. It's the controversial video. It's the video that says you need to never have this food, or it's the video that says, did you know this scientific fact about this obscure thing that you probably have a little bit of? It's going to kill you. Those things can be really destructive because they can paint a really black and white picture. And I'm not giving advice here. I'm not a dietitian myself, but I think it's very fair to say that the kind of extreme algorithm-based things that you can pick up online can put you in a very all or nothing kind of state around a lot of different things with food. And so, like, we're talking in chat about things you can have instead of a full-fat sugary thing. And I said I like the grenade bars. I like the Oreo grenade protein bars. And like, yeah, I know they're ultra processed foods. I know that they have sugar equivalents in them. I know the different things about those not being great to have or whatever. But you know what isn't also great? Obesity. And when you're in a point of having a brain, or just, a neurotypical brain, where this process of dieting and reaching stable diet is harder, in its own way, because of that dopamine angle, the last thing you need is that black and white, because that black and white means you have to take a massive leap from one thing to another, because you've just removed all the stepping stones in between, because they're not good enough. And yeah, if you're going from having, like a Snickers bar every day down to having a calorie lower protein bar or something else, that has some artificial stuff in it, yeah, maybe down the line you could move to having something that is not so processed, but it's a step and it is something that can help you get through to the next point, that will help you get through to the next point. And I think in so many ways with ADHD, and for anyone as well, we're talking about finding ways to get more intelligent, not more intelligent, but get more clever and more tactical about using the resources that we have, all of these little tips and tricks and ways to do things to get stuff done. And I think accepting that a little bit better is better than where you are now, and allowing yourself to do that with stuff like, replacements and substitutes for food is a really big part of it as well. And, I think that feeds in so much with exercise, diet and exercise is so entwined together, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, there's a reason that all the protein shakes tend to come in like really sweet flavors that try to emulate certain things, because even bodybuilders want their treats and stuff like that. And there's a reason things like protein ice cream or protein frozen yogurt hacks exist and all that sort of stuff, because we all enjoy that type of food, and it's okay to eat it as long as you moderate it. The moderation is hard, so for that, find tools that work for you in that regard. As I said, for example, I will never be able to stop tracking because I just can't intuitively do it.
Yeah.
I can do it if I'm in an environment where there's lots of new input. Like when I travel, it's so easy to intuitively eat because that my dopamine just goes ham, because there's so much input and it's amazing and exciting, it's glorious, and there's stuff happening. At home, that's harder. And so yeah, it's hard. Also, like somebody's saying right now in chat, for example, they use like sugary treats to keep their focus. It is totally okay in that case to like consume more caffeine as well, for example. Like stuff like that. Like find out what helps you. If you're trying to not consume as much sugar, let me just have a black coffee instead. It's like is caffeine great for you? No, of course not. But the lesser of two evils is still a reduction and stuff like that. So yeah,
absolutely. My therapist has a wonderful little saying, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and everything else that helps.
Yeah,
like, do what works.
Yeah, exactly. Do what works for you, and don't compare yourself to others as well, because we all have our own little struggles. Everything works a little bit differently for us. It's yes, we both struggle with food, but I think we both struggle with food in like a different way, and we deal with it in a different way. And that's okay, because we're just trying to minimize like the stress and anxiety for ourselves, and whatever works best for you is the best solution for you. I'd say.
You've got to find what is uniquely your way of doing it. I think in so many ways, neurodivergence is not fitting into the box that is provided to you. It can be really hard to give yourself the grace and the leeway to even allow yourself to build a life that is weird to other people. The way I did my dieting, the way I sort of structure my day now would be, someone else would see it who doesn't have the brain I do. They'd be like, what the hell is that guy doing? I tell you what, it's my little Frankenstein setup, and it is starting to work for me. And God, don't allow other people to shame you or to give you a side eye if you're finding out a thing that works for you. Like again, we're talking about the coffee. Is it good to have another coffee at 2 p.m.? I mean, it's going to maybe have an impact on your sleep, but you'll figure it out. But are you helping to figure out a thing that works for you so that you can keep your energy up if you're trying to angle on food and sort it out? Like, allow yourself to experiment and discover things, right? I think we talked about time passing, and time is going to pass anyway. That time is time that you can spend trying new different things out and timings of things until you get those eureka moments. And when they happen, my God, we can do so much when we get those. We just need to figure out and look around for our little eureka moments. And when we get them, we can do so much.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't even have anything to add to that because that is like perfectly summed up. Exactly. It's trial and error, and make your own solutions and figure out what works for you is what's gonna make it work for you. And yeah. So for example, in that case, if you open a bag of sweets, it's half empty within 10 minutes. Yeah. There are ways you can deal with that. You can buy smaller bags or only limit the amount that you buy per week or per 2 weeks and stuff like that. Or open the bag, pre-package it into smaller bags, and then just take a package and make it harder to get to those sweets. Like put them on top of a cabinet. So you need to like get a stepping ladder, like a step stool to get them down or something like that. Like things like that. All little tricks that can help. And yeah, it's trial and error. And sometimes it's also okay just to have the bag of sweets if it's one of those days. Should just not be every day ultimately.
We all get those potato days.
Yeah, sometimes that happens as well. Yeah, but yeah, I think you wrapped it up beautifully already. I don't really have anything to add anymore.
No, we covered really good stuff today.
Yeah.
I know this is another one that's close to both of our hearts. It's been so relevant to the successes we've individually had, and it's been challenging in its own ways when we've been blocked in the past or currently. I think there's loads of really important stuff here that's like specific to exercise and diet, but also that's very universal, right? And I think we covered a really good spread today. Yeah, no,
I think so as well. I think that was very, 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 very good. And thank you all so much for hanging out and being here.
Yes, indeed.
And for joining us for another episode, really.
And sharing
all of your stories as well and everything. I really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you again for joining me as well, Tim. This was good.
Thank you.
This was
always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure indeed. We will have one more episode, and then we'll be breaking for basically break because I'm going on holiday and then Tim's going to TwitchCon, so we're taking a little bit of a break in there. But yeah, one more episode. We'll let you know what we're going to be talking about then a little bit. Yeah, there. We'll let you know because we haven't decided yet. And yeah, I think that's it. We shall see you again in 2 weeks. Thank you for watching and hanging out. And
take good care of yourselves, folks.
Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.